All right. Here we are, day 3. Welcome to what are we? We are doing a live stream of the Find What You're Looking For, an internet search series. I'm Donna Harris. My brand is Foundational Things, and I am here to help anyone who wants to learn more about things technical, things not so technical, but things that advance our ability to communicate and to grow. And in particular, I'm really focused right now on the straightforward stuff of how we use computers and how we use the internet, how we interact with the world through search, specifically as part of this 9-day series. So I'm really glad that you're here, glad you're watching. And hoping that today is going to be a pretty fun time. So let's get right to it here. I have the day 3 slides. Here we go. Day 3. We're exploring the ins and outs of internet searching. This is the third of 9 sessions, and we're summarizing search operators today. We're going to continue to use them for the remaining 6 days, but we've really been focused on making sure that we have a handle on what search operators are, what they're doing. So if you've missed the first 2 sessions, they're available on YouTube. They're on a playlist specifically for this series. And tomorrow, we're starting into a new phase, which is looking at search settings, talking about search engines, talking about customizing how we use those, and even our browser, our web browser, and how that can help us in searching, or different techniques that we can use. And then that'll take us into next week. And then the last 3 sessions, Wednesday to Friday of next week, we're going to be looking at search results and looking at context and looking for different kinds of searching. So we're going to be just continuing to build on the different skills that we're learning each day, that we're refreshing ourselves on each day. There'll be some things that won't be new at all, some things you maybe never thought of, some things you never knew. But it's a good review for all of us, and even people who have been searching online for lots and lots of years might not know some of these things. So it's kind of cool to check it out. So today we're going to get a little bit more fancy with our search operators. We're going to start combining them, seeing the power of using them together. We're going to look at the idea that there's actually more search operators out there besides the few that I focused on. I focused on some of the main ones that are pretty common and pretty handy across a lot of different search engines, and even just searching in general outside of search engines and the internet. And then looking at advanced search, and what I mean by that is some search engines actually offer an interface, a special page that is all set up for you that does advanced search. So we'll take a quick look at that from Google, because Google does that. So this is the flow. This is what we've been talking about for the last few days. The idea that you provide some search keywords, some operators. That's been our focus the last couple of days. And you present that request. You might call it a query. But you present that to a search engine. The search engine does some magic in the background, often very, very, very quickly, and comes back with a whole bunch of results. And often we have to go back and refine. We have to say, okay, maybe that's a bit closer, or maybe that's nothing like what we were thinking. We had what our idea was when we thought we were searching for something, and maybe it isn't as common as we thought. Or maybe, again, the context, something we'll talk more and more about in coming days, maybe the context isn't what the search engine was anticipating. So for instance, we've been doing a lot of examples the last 2 days with the word apple. And when you just throw apple in, I maybe just think apple the fruit, but the big wide world of internet web pages is going to come back with Apple, the technology company, Apple, the provider of computers. And yeah, I enjoy Apple products, but I'm thinking about fruit. How do I get to fruit or something a bit more specific? So that's the kind of thing. Sometimes we have to, oh yeah, I was thinking this, but obviously the search engine's going to think that. So you have to refine what we're looking for. So this is really our workflow, and we're specifically looking at the power of how to refine using our operators. So again, search operators, that's just a term that it isn't the only term that describes this, but this is a term that we're using these couple of days to describe the special words and the symbols that can be used to add that context or to improve the specificness or the specificity, as it says in the slide, to our searches. And the last 2 days, we've looked at things like exact match, exclusion, using ands and ors. One of my all-time favorites, that it's a new favorite. I haven't used it nearly enough, but the last few days I'm like, yeah, I need to use this all the time. The cite prefix. And the cite prefix is super powerful. That's the one that just limits where we're searching. So instead of searching the entire big wide world, we can say, oh, just search on this particular website or just search on this domain. That's pretty powerful. And then we also started looking at the idea of wildcards, which is another thing altogether. So today we are going to acknowledge that there are many, many, many more search operators, and I'm not going to go through all of them the way that I have in the last couple of days. I focused on the main ones, and we're looking at those, but there are more. There are more specific ones, and sometimes they're specific to a search engine, and so we're going to look at how to find those. And we also want to use search operators together. And that was what I was hinting at a few moments ago. Hi, I see someone in the live chat that I actually know today. No spam bots. Yay. Glad to see you here. Okay, so let's talk about this, combining search operators. So why do we want to do this? Well, it can make for a more powerful search request. And as I've already said, the idea of showing your intention, being able to give some kind of context for what you're searching for is a big part of why we would do this. So we can use the ones that we already know together, and then these other ones that maybe you pick up on from our next step beyond this one. You could just use whatever search engines and use whatever search operators, rather, throw those together. So what do I mean by this? Well, here's an example. And this kind of riffs on a bunch of themes from the last couple of days. We had Apple Star Betty. So that star there, that asterisk, that's the Google symbol for wildcard. We've got those double quotes there. And that shows that we're looking for an exact match pattern of Apple blank Betty, Apple something Betty. And those that pattern has to match. We've got... I used a whole bunch of them here. Look at this. We've got the hyphen in front of another word. So that's excluding. So we're looking for something to do with Apple blank Betty specifically, but without the word butter. And I've even narrowed it down even more by saying specifically from the allrecipes.com website. So what I would expect that this is going to ask for, request out to Google, is to basically look for recipes, because allrecipes.com, if you aren't familiar with that website, you probably could guess that that is a recipes website. And just looking on that site is a really good chance that I'm looking for a recipe. And because I'm excluding butter, I'm looking for a recipe that doesn't include butter. And because I've got Apple blank Betty, Apple Star Betty, I'm looking for some kind of Apple Betty recipe. So yesterday we did the Apple Star Betty search, and we got like Apple Brown Betty and just Apple Betty with nothing in between. Apple Raisin Betty, don't know why. Apple Pan Betty, all those things were coming back in our search. So we want those kinds of recipes, but we want something that doesn't have butter, and we want it specifically from this website. So that's an example of combining search operators. So let's not just talk about it. Let's do it. So head over here, see if I can remember what I just read. Apple Star Betty, without butter, specifically from allrecipes.com. Boom. So first thing I want you to notice right off the bat is that there are 519 results. And that's a really good sign because no, we're not going to look at 519 of these. We may not even scroll down off of what we've got here. But we know from yesterday's session that doing Apple Star Betty even had a lot of results, right? So we know for sure, without even looking at what they are, that we're looking at a much smaller set of web pages, a much smaller set of results, which is really cool, which is really great. So let's just like look at one of these, and I don't even know which one this is. I'm gonna open this up in a new tab, and here we go. We've got the apple lattice fruit bake. Man, I'm so hungry. And I scroll through here and I don't see anything that says anything about butter. That's great. Let's just do a quick little search here. Just within the page, this is not a Google search. This is just the browser web search. And that's returning 0, 0. 0 out of 0. There's no words, no instances of butter on there. I just realized a cable is loose here. So just a sec. Just open. I think I'm got a little bit of a lag here, and I think that's because that cable was out. So sorry about that. Hopefully the quality will be okay. And the joys of being live. So that's the power of combining search operators together. That's pretty cool. So you can do it too. You know how to do exact match. You know how to exclude stuff. All right, I got a question in the chat. Hey there. Wouldn't that exclude recipes that specifically say that there's no butter? Yes, it would. Yep. So that's a really good point. So this might not be what you want to do, but this is definitely demonstrating what you can do. So this is a great question and an excellent thing to point out. This is, generally speaking, occasionally Google's going to do something wacky and still include something even though you specifically said this. And I don't know why it does that, but generally speaking, it's going to take what you've asked for. And very specifically, you said you don't want the word butter. This isn't just saying, I don't want butter in the recipe. This is saying, I don't want butter on the page. So if there's a big paragraph that's saying, and this is a recipe without butter, and it's some, narrative about not using butter, then, or if it's called like the no butter Apple Betty recipe, then no, it wouldn't show up in the search. So that's also really important to keep in mind. It works both ways. When you exclude something, then something that's specifically talking about excluding it would also be excluded. So that's a really great point because that is just the way that works. So something to keep in mind. Searching is an inexact science from a searcher's perspective, and this is why we want to refine searches and then get our heads around the kinds of things that are happening in the background. So great question. I'm really glad that you asked that. Before we move on to other search operators, because that's the next thing that I've got on here, let's see what else I have on my list over here. Yeah, let's move on. That's pretty cool. We'll go with that. All right, other search operators. So you can find more search operators than the ones we talked about over the last couple of days. And they can be specific to your search engine. Google is a powerhouse, but it is not the only search engine out more. We'll talk about that a bit more tomorrow. And because the nature of search and all the fancy magic that's happening behind searches is constantly changing and evolving, things that used to be search operators for Google, for instance, even just a few years ago, may no longer have any effect, may no longer have any meaning, but over on another search engine, it will. The magic that's happening on a Yahoo or a Bing is going to be, maybe some parts of it are going to be similar, but it's going to be quite different than what Google does. Google magic is very specific to Google land. And so sometimes it's worth trying something else. If you're looking for search operators, it's important to know that it doesn't always work everywhere. So the things that we're doing, for instance, when I did that wildcard with the asterisk, that is a Google specific symbol for wildcard. Another search operator might not care about asterisk, or they might have a different symbol that represents it that Google doesn't observe. So this is the kind of thing that, yeah, if you're using a search engine and you want to use some of these fancy things, go find out what it is that they support. So you want to find more search operators specific to your search engine, and you also want to find search operators that are current. I've already kind of hinted at that with my last statement. So this is where searching and the way we search for search operators, it's kind of funny, a little bit meta, right? Searching for our search operators, we need to, again, context keeps creeping in, and it needs to. Context needs to just be a theme through the whole thing here, because what we're searching for and where we're searching for it from and why, and all those things really do piece into it. So in this case, we could look for search operators for the Google search engine, but if we're looking on just wherever, and it could be telling us all about it, and that's wonderful, but if it's a really old article, it might not be very helpful anymore. So we want to find an authoritative source. For me, in this instance, that would be from Google itself. No one knows it better than Google, we would hope, or what they want us to be able to use as just regular Joe searchers. We want to be able to get that information from Google to know, okay, what should work when we're using their search engine and what works now. Now works and what worked yesterday or a couple years ago. So that also helps, because if we do a query like this, which we're going to do in a second, this is what I would do first. It's exactly what I did to check this information out. Google search operator, and then specifically on the site, google.com, anything with that domain, google.com. So let's do that. And the reason I want to do that, do down here, Google, what did I say? Search operator, and then site, google.com. And yeah, I didn't use quotes. I didn't do anything to try to narrow it down too much. And a lot of times you don't really need them, but it's good to know that you can use quotes. What I'm looking for is this set of words on this kind of a website. And the first thing that comes back is exactly what I'm looking for, because let's just take a hint here from the actual name of the website, that URL, if you've heard URL, the website address, support.google.com. This is the kind of thing that's targeted at you and me, regular, just normal consumer type of user that just wants to do searches. Support documents, that's what we're looking for. You can scroll down and see the second thing that comes back also looks really interesting. Overview of Google search operators, documentation. That sounds like great, wonderful. But if you look even before clicking on it, if you look closer, this is developers.google.com. So this will provide a lot of interesting things, but it's coming at it from a different perspective than what we are today. It's coming at it from the person that's going to write some code somewhere to write something that integrates with their website or their application or their program, to use Google search as part of that. So it would be an interesting read. I'm not discouraging you from using it or clicking on it, but it isn't quite the same as the idea of just doing our Google searches right now. So let's open this one up. And so Google search help, that already just makes me feel warm and fuzzy. What are we doing? Refining web searches. You've seen this word, refinement. I've talked about this whole process. We're refining our searches, and they're using this word as well. So you're going to scroll through this page with me, and you're going to see a number of things that we've already talked about. So we've got site. This is part of how we got here. But then pretty quickly, we haven't talked about advanced image search yet. That'll come in a few days. No reason why you can't check it out. Here's one, image size operator. Haven't done that, but that's kind of neat if you're looking for images of a certain size. Boom, there it is. Search social media. You can use the @ to do that. You can find meaning to your searches, not just putting numbers in, but saying, hey, I'm looking specifically for something with a price, and put the $ in front. I think this works for $ currencies, and I think it also is supposed to work with euro. It doesn't work with all currencies, but My part of the world works with dollar signs, so dollar signs works for me. Hashtags, you can do searches with hashtags. So that's, you know, if that's some kind of thing that you're looking for, what this is telling me is that it's going to add that meaning to say, okay, it isn't just the word Twitter, it's Twitter relating to social media, or it isn't just Throwback Thursday, it's Throwback Thursday in the context of that being a hashtag and that trending side of things. What have we done? We've talked about excluding, we've talked about exact match. This one's really neat. To go play with the idea of a range of numbers. So this could work with prices. This can work with years. So if you're looking for something, a search, a movie or something, and you're looking between the years of, 2022, 2020 and 2022, and movies that have come out from Marvel or something like that. I am a Marvel fan. I'm even wearing Captain America shirt today. That's the kind of thing that would limit the search for a specific range. And it can be used that way. So that's pretty cool. There's a few others here. One that's not here that I'm actually going to show you. I'm kind of surprised it's not here. There's one called intitle. So it's the same kind of idea as cite. We've got related, we've got cached here, but there's intitle. And it is explicitly asking for us to we're requesting, hey, like, is this something that are these words that are featured in the title of the web page? So let's just do without in title operator, beginner camping. Bunch of stuff's gonna to come up here, and yeah, the pretty important things are already gonna have possibly words camping and beginner in the title, because usually if that's an important part of the subject matter, it's going to have that highlighted in the title. It's kind of part of how that often works, but not always. So look at the second thing, the beginner's guide to your first campout. That's different. It's still about camping. Camping comes up. Similar words like campers, Google's going to say, hey, this is a similar word. This seems like a good result. And it bases it on all sorts of magic that we don't have to worry about today. But if we're going to say, hey, just to exercise this, what would happen if I let's actually leave that one open. This doesn't give us a count. That may just be because there's way too many results. I don't know. Sometimes Google doesn't give us a count. But let's try this one. Beginner camping. Now, notice there's a space in between beginner and camping. That might mean that there's going to be intitle is just looking for beginner. I don't know. Let's find out. So again, we see the word beginner. That's great. Okay. So let's try another one over here. Intitle. Let's put quotes around it. So this is interesting because now we're going to be expecting, we've combined two operators again, right? So we've got this intitle, and then we've got beginner camping as an exact match phrase. So how to plan a beginner camping trip. That's in the title. Beginner and camping are beside beginner camping tips to read before your first trip. 5 beginner camping trips. Avoid beginner, so the things that are coming back are matching that very specifically. Again, this isn't the only way to search. This isn't necessarily the way you would do a search every day. But if you know there are certain things that you just want to make sure that are popping out really strongly, or you want just a variation on the search that you're getting because there are so many results back, this is something that you can do just to start seeing a different set of things that are still relating to your intention or your context. You can be very, very specific and put something like beginner's guide to camping. You can, you can use parentheses and things, but I think with Google, they pretty much ignore the parentheses. I feel like, oops, I feel like if I do one more search with parentheses, we're going to see something a little bit different. So I'm just going to try it. Beginner camping. All right, so it does ignore it. So that's what I thought. There are some search engines that will use that. There are some things outside of search engines that definitely use, like, math, for instance, right? There's some kind of precedence that's given to the parentheses. But Google doesn't observe that. So it's important to keep that in mind when you're doing something like this. All right, what time is it? It is time to move along, I think. All right, one more thing that I wanted to show you. I think the really neat thing is that now we have all these tools that we can build stuff up ourselves and piece things together. And I'll do another do another search or two just to show some fun fun stuff. Let's do that before I go too far. I'm making everything go crazy here. All right. So Google's really powerful, and it's getting more and more powerful and more aware of what's going on. So if you type in, let's say that my brain is saying, "Oh, there was a thing I saw on the internet, and it was Apple something, and I don't know what it was." So if I just type in Apple, it's just going to say, I'm just going to show you the tech giant, and it's going to take you to, it's, as far as it's concerned, I've entered Apple once. There's no significance to the idea that I've entered that in 3 times for some reason. So if I was doing this, I'd be like, oh yeah, rats, but I can't think of what it would be. Now, one thing that happened we'll talk about, and I'll try to remember to talk about in the coming sessions, but I'll mention it, is that our browsers, not even our browsers, the search engines are getting, again, smarter and smarter, and the autocomplete, the suggestion, like it was already making suggestions that should be leading me to this answer. But let's say it didn't do that, or I didn't notice that because I just typed too fast and pressed enter and whatever. So this is where I could throw quotes around, ignoring all of the wonderful examples. And now it's still suggesting Apple because Apple is Apple and it's everywhere. But now we're seeing things that are specific to that phrase. So that's the power of exact match. We want it to do Apple repeated 3 times. We want it to show us that. So it's like, okay, great. But let's say I know it was a meme. And if I just stick Apple meme, this probably works without the quotes as well. But if I'm like, oh yeah, that still didn't bring it up, just saying Apple. Well, what was it? Well, it was a meme. So then we add meme, and I was like, it was the thing with an iguana, right? How could I forget that? We could find that. That would be really powerful. There's still lots of results, but Google's smart enough. It's going to say, okay, this is probably what you mean. And in this case, yeah, it was. If we know that it's iguana, which I seem to not be able to type, and I put that in quotes, it's going to return only things relating to the Apple iguana pattern, which includes still that result of that silly little meme. But we have a lot less results, right? So that's interesting to say. Maybe you want to see something about that, like what's the origin of that, or who made it, or you could stick in iguana, after iguana you could do creator. Now you're starting to find out, oh, okay, this is probably going to take me to find out who's the mastermind behind that? Who is the brilliant mind behind Apple iguana? I don't know. But you can find out. It's pretty cool. All right. Right. So we looked up the idea that, yeah, you could do refining your web searches. But we've only been talking about Google. So let's do the same kind of search, but for Bing. So Bing, what did I say? Search operator. Who uses this? I don't know, but people do use other search engines beside Google. And we're going to talk about why that is and some of the pros and cons of doing that. Even if you're always using Google mostly, it's good to know the other things that are out there. We'll talk about that in the coming days. So Bing search operators, let's just start there. I don't even know what do I narrow it down to. So I'm looking at this, and yeah, instantly it's giving me, so lifewire.com and some SEO and whatever, suggestions, and some of the dates, they aren't that far away. But what do I really want to see? I'm like, oh yeah, Bing is a Microsoft product. So the idea that it's coming from support Microsoft.com, that looks like a really good search. We'll go to that one. And this is where you start to see some of the differences, right? So they don't call them search operators so much, but it's the same. It's the same idea of we've got symbols. They use the plus sign for some things. Google used to use the plus sign, doesn't anymore. Uses exact match with quotes. Okay, that's cool. We've covered that. Google does that. Most search engines are going to do that. That one is super common and super powerful. Parentheses. So being able to group things. And Bing does it. Google seems to ignore it. And we talked about and yesterday. They actually use the ampersand as a possible symbol there. We didn't explore that one because for me, when I did my sort of testing with Google, it didn't seem to make any difference. We did or with the or symbol, that pipe, that straight vertical bar. And those were pretty similar results. We didn't use explicitly capitalized not. We just used the hyphen. But it's a lot of the same ones. And then they're also defining, okay, hey, by default, all searches are and searches. And that's the same with Google as well. We don't usually need to put the word and, but sometimes even just for ourselves to think it through, it's not going to harm us if we're doing the capitalized and search operator to say, I mean this and this. And if it helps your brain make sure that you're providing the right context, then, I think anything that helps us make more sense of things is ultimately the thing that we should do. So yeah, like this is providing more information about how you would do search. Like what are some of these things? There's also some related article here. This one's interesting too. So they call them advanced search keywords. Fine, they can call it whatever they want. It's the same premise. I don't think there's a right or wrong term. We're just really talking about whatever tools we can find in order to, to search down deeper, right? So this is talking about some stuff that we haven't been talking about. There's site. There we go. There's one we've done. But yeah, depends the kind of searching you're doing, right? Some of this, you may never need to do anything with searching for an IP address. You might not know what an IP address is. I hardly feel like I know what an IP address is, but you could do search involving that if you need to. So that's really kind of neat. One thing, now that we've looked at the word advanced search, I want to talk about something called what I'm referring to as an advanced search interface. So anything that we've been doing where we've started to pile on operators and do a bunch of things, or, that's starting to get into a more advanced search technique, which is really cool. You've got the power, you've got the tools, you can put them together, you can do these things. This is great. But there is something that Google offers that is called advanced search, and it's its own page. So that's why I called it an interface. It's something, it's not just an activity that you're participating in. You're not just doing advanced search. You have an interface, a thing that you can interact with, that is called advanced search. So it is a page that allows us to use a lot of the same kind of refinements, but just all in one spot without having to remember all the keywords or the search operators, and kind of guides you through it and gives you more options even than the things that Google lists or than some of the things that we've explored. So that's really kind of neat. Important to note, not all search engines offer this. So Bing doesn't offer this. I think it used to. And I was doing a little bit of research and found out that it used to. And then some people were really, really sad because then it wasn't there anymore. And again, that's the nature of the internet. That's the nature of search and developing different algorithms and stuff. Google could very well remove this advanced search interface one day. But for today, I will show it to you. We will find where it is and what you can do with it. So here we are on just Google homepage. I don't know if this is .ca.com, but it's the same the same, probably the same interface, but let's just be real specific and go to google.ca. Okay. And then, oh, I know what that was. That was the landing page for my browser. So that was not exactly the same thing. So wherever I come in from google.com, here we are now. Bottom right corner here, there's settings link. I click on that and there's an option, advanced search. So we see that before I click on that. That brings us to this page. Oh, I'm going to actually zoom in a bit. It's kind of big. Okay. So one thing I did find with this is that if you're on this page, if the browser window is too narrow, all of these instructional things don't appear. So if you're looking at my screen and you're trying to do it along with me and you're saying, I don't see it, could be because your window is too narrow. So let me just show you that. Okay. So this is part of something called responsive design, which means that it's supposed to work differently on different widths of screens. So if you're seeing this and you're like, Donna, it's not there. Well, see if you can do something to make either your window wider, or if it's as wide as it can go, you can also zoom down in your browser settings. Just a little tip there if you're not seeing that. Okay, so what is this? This is the Google Advanced Search interface, and this page is guiding us through a lot of things we've already been doing. You have all this context and all this knowledge now if you've been following through for the last few sessions and even just watching this session. So put the keywords in here. So this is where you would put something like, Apple Betty or something like that. If you want any of these words, but none of these words, this is where you would put your exclusions. And it's even showing you like, yeah, if you don't want rodent, you would just put rodent here. You want miniature or standard, like it's the equivalent. It's doing these things. So this is something we can play with. I'm just showing you it's here. I'm not even going to walk through it this time. But then you can further narrow your results down by language, like any kind of language. So if you're getting a lot of multi-language things, or you're looking for something very specific, then you've got some power to play with that. Here's a fun one. When was it last updated? Depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for like a news story that is specific to something that's happening in your neighborhood this week, you don't want results from last month. You don't want things that are talking about that car accident from like 4 years ago. I don't know how many times I've done this where I'm like trying to find something for, oh, there was a car accident on the, major highway. And I want to learn more about that. And just sometimes it's like, you type in and it's like, yeah, there was this big accident, this big problem. And it was like in, 2016. That is interesting, but not relevant to this moment. So, this is a little trick that might be helpful for you. You can narrow down where you're going to search, just like you could do with that search operator. You can be really specific. Yeah, maybe we wanted something in the title, but maybe we only want it in the text. It's really kind of neat. Stuff like this. I appreciate stuff like this. If you're finding a lot of offensive stuff coming back in your search, you can hide explicit results. Sometimes you really mean something else and the world is taking it in another direction and you're not interested in that. Well, you can come in here. This is one way to do it. Google has another way. We'll be looking at those ways a little bit more too. If you're looking for a specific file to come back, you want to find a PDF of some sort, well, get rid of all the other options and just the web pages and have PDFs come back. And then another one that I'm going to be talking about in a few different ways is the idea of usage rights and what's actually legal to use and to reuse and how it can be reused. So this is one of the ways that Google provides to be able to filter down. And this is a very nice, specific way, which I appreciate. So that's Google Advanced Search. And it's a really nice interface. Okay, so I think I'll wrap it up for today. We can use search operators to make internet searches more specific. We've been learning this for the last few days. We often need to refine our searches based on the results that we're getting back. We can use the operators to restrict or expand our search. So cool. And then we learned that we can use advanced search as an interface. So a lot of this is the same thing over and over again, but we have just been piling on layers of details and starting to piece new things together. And hopefully these are things you're just going to walk away from this session and the other sessions and just start using and start playing with them and find out, hey, I might not need to use this every day, but in that moment where you're like, it would really help right now if I could just search on this website, or if I could just get rid of that word, then that's something that you have the tools to do now. So good on you. That's good. All right, next time, moving into day 4, that would be tomorrow. We're going to talk a bit more about that big wide world of search engines. We're going to look at some search settings. And this is going to kind of stretch out over a few days. So we're going to just be hitting these initially and then starting to make use of our browser for our searches and different ways we can leverage that. So we're going to touch on these tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow is Friday. So no sessions over the weekend, but we will do every day next week from Monday to Friday to get through this session, get through this series. And we can look forward to settings and in using these different tools of browsers and different search engines to help us on our quest to find what we're looking for and to have better searches. And on that topic, between now and then, and maybe over the weekend, there is a free companion guide. It's called Searching Made Easier. And the link is in the description of the YouTube video here. And you can check that out. And it is a good overview of things that you can do. And just walks through some really detailed case studies of different kinds of searches and some things we've done already, some stuff that's to come. And hopefully that will be really useful as a reference for you going forward. So please check that out. Download that from Foundational Things. You might also want to know the latest news and reminders, like when I send out a new video or when I'm planning the next live series or different things like that. And so if you want to connect up, you can go to sign up for news and reminders. And of course, I'd be remiss not to mention that there are other videos already out there on this YouTube channel for Foundational Things. Eventually, it will also include all of the videos in this teaching series. So this is day 3 of 9. Days 1 and 2, and even a little promo for day 0 are already there. There's a playlist that shows them all, puts them in order. So if you're watching this well after the fact, if it isn't June 2022 anymore and you're watching this, they should all be there, and you should be able to go through the series to pick and choose what applies the most to you. So that's it. That is it for today. Thanks for coming and hanging out. It's exciting to have a real live person today and a real live question. And if you're watching this later and you have questions, feel free to stick those in the comments on YouTube or reach out to me personally. And if you're doing that in the next few days while I'm still doing the live sessions, I will do my best to bring that question into the session and answer it as part of the series. So it's kind of neat. And if it's after the fact, please still send your questions my way, and I will do my best to help you. So thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow around, hopefully around noontime, but we'll see. We'll see what works best tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much. And we'll talk to you later. Take care.